All right, our friend Mike Blewitt from SportsGrid is in the green room.
Is he?
Yeah, he's here. We want to bring him on.
Oh, yeah, we got to bring Blewitt in. I
mean, we don't want to have him hanging out and waiting.
Look at this guy.
Good morning,
Michael.
sir.
How are you guys?
We are wonderful. How are you?
I'm doing great. Happy summer. Happy 4th of July belated. And I did watch the Derby. I agree with some of your thoughts. No bracket. Let's get rid of the bracket.
Did you enjoy it? Was it fun for you?
I feel the same way about the Home Run Derby every year. It's a nice spectacle, but I think the players are having more fun than I am at home. I need two things. Somebody put it well on Twitter last night. I need to be able to track where the ball goes and see maybe the kids catching it in the outfield. And the camera angle is whipping around at such a high rate. I don't know what's going on. I don't know which ones are home runs. Everybody's exhausted. I don't know what's happening. And by the end, every year on ESPN, 8 to 10 home run derby. Every year I'm there at 11:05. Like, all right, can we wrap this up? Can we East Coast, baby. We got to go to bed. Let's go.
Here we go with the East Coast. Stop.
He's not wrong. Nonsense. He's not wrong.
Michael, I want to thank you for helping Jessica and Kylie navigate their way around the city. Mike was a big resource. Literally, I called him after, and P-Rod understands this. You guys watching the show understand this. Sometimes my wife is a little headstrong and knows everything, but has never been to New York City and thought she knew her way around. So I called Mike on the phone, conference called her with Jessica and said, get her to the Staten Island Ferry, please. So thank you for that.
Yeah.
You got a big birthday coming up, Mike.
Yeah, absolutely. My daughter turns 8 in 2 days. We took her to 7-Eleven today for the first mini gift for a free Slurpee. So excited about that. Big day.
So my daughter turns 9 in 19 days. Is this a birthday thing or is it today thing?
Today is Slurpee day. You get a free Slurpee.
Today is Slurpee day.
Yeah, 7-Eleven. For 7-Eleven, you get
going
free
after the show,
small Slurpee.
You just walk in and say, I want a free Slurpee, and they give it to you?
Yeah. I was going to get one and buy two.
Right.
For my son. And, maybe the big guy gets a little Slurpee.
Yeah.
But they're like, no, they're all free. So here's 3 free Slurpees. So I was like, all right.
Whoa.
Thanks.
Slurpee.
Oh, because it's 7-Eleven.
Shout out to 7-Eleven.
Because it's July 11th.
Okay. That's right.
Okay.
So I think Matt would concur with me here. I'm going to give everybody a little summer traveling tip. If you're coming out to the East Coast.
Yes.
Yeah.
Matt's a Bostonian native. I lived in Boston for many years.
Yes.
I'm a New York guy now and grew up as such. Come on to the cities. Come over to the East Coast. We love having you here. But here's a couple of things. It's really hot. You're going to wait in a lot of lines. So that's number one. Number two, I implore you, do not drive here. Do not drive in the cities. We do not want you to drive. The cities do not want you to drive. You might get towed. You will probably get a ticket, and you will definitely get lost. So please do not drive here.
Because
just park the car.
Streets make no sense.
Right. Boston streets make no sense.
Zero.
New York's make a little bit more, but they're far more crowded, and it's more difficult to drive.
Yeah,
right.
How low in the island you go.
Exactly right.
The further down the island you go, the more complicated.
Which is exactly where Dave's wife and daughter drove to. The most confusing part of the entire city. The part of the city that was inhabited first.
Yes.
300 years ago.
Yes.
The streets are circular. They make no sense. I'm surprised they didn't get towed just driving down the street because they were violating so many traffic laws.
There are streets, people, you don't know this in New York. There are streets in that part of Manhattan that literally are 2 blocks.
Correct.
It's a street that's 2 blocks. It's like a hop, skip, and a jump, and it's a street. So your GPS has no idea what's going on.
Correct. So
clueless.
That's your summer tip. Come on in, but leave the car.
Yeah, I like that. I would concur with that. And also, I think your point about lines and patience needs to be there because people who live in Boston or live in New York or live in Philadelphia, they have places.
Patient people.
Yeah, they have places where they want to go.
Correct.
Yeah.
So you have to understand something that you're now in the way. And your vacation does not matter to them. They want to get you out of the way as fast as possible. So you have to understand the impatience of the Northeastern person and just roll with it. Like,
correct.
Just got to suck it up and deal with it.
And you can look through your guidebooks or you look online, like, what are some fun, free things to do in New York? Let me tell you something, folks.
What?
if it's free, it sounds too good to be true. Yeah. It's because it is.
It's gonna say, like,
it's too good to be true.
What is
he took the glasses off. I'm putting the glasses off. When Mike takes the glasses off, things get very serious. I put the listening glasses on when there's an important message to be said.
You're just going to wait in line all day, and it's 95 degrees out. So don't do it.
Right.
Don't do it. No, don't do it.
Anyway,
it's a bad idea.
It's my summer traveling tips to the Northeast.
Let's get to a quick betting item while we can. You're Yankees. You're a Yankee fan. All right. Jessica and Kylie went to Yankee Stadium on Saturday. They got to see the Yankees play the Cubs. They
nice going to a funeral.
This for me. They said
going to funerals. It's fun to go to a funeral sometimes,
Michael, are the Yankees dead? I mean, seriously, are they done? Because the pitching, okay. The hitting, caca.
No bueno.
Judge,
no juice.
No toe. No nothing. What's going on? It's done.
Bad.
Yeah, look, I feel the same way about the Yankees without Judge are obviously not that impressive of a team. They have some talent and they can get by. They can squeak into a wild card, but nobody's threatened by them. I sort of felt the same way the last few years about the Yankees. That they could rack up, and maybe not this year because Judge is out for an extended period of time, but you can get to their 90-win threshold or wherever, and are they really any more threatening in 2023 than they were in 2022 or 2021? Fair. The last time the Yankees were really threatening, unfortunately, to me, was the 2018, when the 2018 Red Sox were so good and they were just a step above. Those 2017, 2018, 2019 Yankees teams are more threatening than this version of it. I just feel like year over year, the Brian Cashman is happy to make the playoffs and play to the randomness of the MLB playoffs, but that isn't really good enough. I think you've had to make some additional changes to the roster in order for them to be a threatening team, and
Mike,
they're just not that right now.
They just hired Sean Casey. Isn't that a big change? They could change the hitting coach.
I've had this debate
with everything.
I've had this debate in the past, and this is no disrespect to the people that have the job, but is there a more ceremonial coaching position in all of professional sports than the hitting coach?
Bench coach, maybe. Bench coach.
Yeah. But the hitting coach, like, really, what kind of impact does he have on the entire team? I think he can fix certain things with some guys, good personality to have in the clubhouse, but to think changing a hitting coach has any real impact, I just don't see it. I mean, wish Sean Casey well. He's the mayor. I hope he has a great time here in New York.
Yeah.
For the brief stay you'll have.
Right.
Let's talk a little college sports, because last time we saw you, at least last time I saw you here in town, you were in town for the college basketball world. You run in those circles. You know a lot of things about what happens in the college ranks. How can you explain to the layman what happened with Northwestern, where they did a full investigation into Pat Fitzgerald? They suspended him for 2 weeks. The student newspaper then goes and talks to players and former players, some on the record, some off the record, and they say, no, wait a minute, this is not even close to being true. He knew, the coach knew, he was in on it. He was aware of everything going on, and these changes aren't going to really matter at all. And now Pat Fitzgerald is out of work. He loses his job at Northwestern. How does that work? If I'm on the outside looking in going like, how did that happen, and how was that allowed to happen?
Good question. I think this is not a blanket answer for every school. I think you have to consider the university that's involved, although I do understand the dynamic between this coach and this school is unique in modern day athletics. He played there. He was a legend there. The guy was only a few years older than me, and I remember his playing days well. He was a dominant player, and it was a cool thing that he got to at least have some successful seasons as the Northwestern head coach. The fact that this investigation went on for 6 months, and at the conclusion of it, there was a stop and start with the university president, who is fairly new to the job as well, I think belies that there's a deeper problem regarding Northwestern. The previous athletic director at Northwestern to the one that they have now was in the job for under 2 weeks. The reason he was in the job for under 2 weeks is because the previous athletic director that he replaced had retired and moved, or was Jim Phillips, and had moved on to become commissioner of the ACC. The one that replaced him was installed in the job then news came out that he was under investigation for issues that had happened within the athletic department. So he immediately resigned because he didn't want to be part of a huge investigation. New athletic director, but all these problems still persist. This is not the first issue that's happened at really one of the most prestigious universities in the entire planet.
Right.
Yes, they have a Division I athletic program, but this is amongst the top universities in the entire freaking world. And for them to do a 6-month investigation and him to jump out with a 2-week suspension that's not even in season really misses the point, especially when I read one article, the student newspaper article, and I was like, anybody is fired here. Anyone would be fired. Even Pat Fitzgerald. So I think the biggest thing to come out of it is I don't know how the president arrived at a 2-week suspension. There's nobody that could read that article and suspect that this wouldn't happen.
What's the irony that a student newspaper was the one that did this in the same week that the New York Times and the LA Times disband their sports pages?
Amazing, right? Investigative journalism done by 21-year-olds shows to be as powerful as any that can be done. Obviously, there's a component of where maybe the former players felt more comfortable going to their peers than they did Chicago Sun-Times or somebody along those lines. So I give them credit for that. But really terrible allegations. Obviously, some of them appear to be true, but I have to call them allegations for now because there will be lawyers, as Andrew Brandt likes to say, there will be lawyers that will go from here on out. And that was year 2 of a 10-year, $57 million deal. So there is a big pile of cash on the table as well to be negotiated.
That's the problem. Like in a lot of these things, I think I immediately read it and started talking about it. Like it brought up the Penn State stuff for me, which was where I went to school and JOPA and all this stuff and who knew when and why and all that other stuff. But it's a lot of lawyers going to be involved, Mike, right? There's going to be a lot of like settlements and they have to suspend him first before they fire him. Anybody that's working a corporate job knows there's an HR procedure for, disciplining someone and then letting them go because it's hard to fire someone or get fired anymore from jobs. But a lot of this is like legal posturing, is it not?
Yes, of course. All they really had to do initially was put Pat Fitzgerald on an indefinite administrative leave until they investigated it further.
Right.
And then it wouldn't make it look as embarrassing as it was. If they put him on indefinite administrative leave, indefinite can still mean 2 weeks, but continue to do the investigation. I don't know why they arrived at that 2-week situation. And this is the same deal with Bob Huggins, not the same deal, but they're similar dynamic with the Bob Huggins situation where he quits. And then now 2 days ago, he's like, well, he's got 3 lawyers and one lawyer says, wait, he didn't really quit. This is just about him trying to claw money back. But I don't really know what leg Bob Huggins has to stand on for not being fired for cause. He was fired for cause. It's his second major. Now, first of all, his second DUI, his third, at least, major incident off field. And again, the guy went to school there. I get that he's got some legendary status there, but the fact that West Virginia has installed a coach that just became a full-time coach a couple of years ago, was basically director of basketball operations 2 seasons ago, which is no disrespect to all the Dobos out there, nor to this coach. But it's clearly at a time when he's never had a head coaching job of any sort, let alone a Big 12 basketball head coaching job.
It's the same thing with, look at the odds for West Virginia. They're picked last. They're expected to be horrible basketball wise because Huggins obviously left. The players left right afterwards. We would expect in the next 30 days a mass exodus of Northwestern football players to be leaving. Just from a betting standpoint, not to be callous or cold, but from a betting standpoint, I mean, they were bad last year. This seems like a lost season already for Northwestern, correct?
No doubt. I think I would be surprised if Northwestern could have their 85 scholarship players. The unique situation is that it is Northwestern. That is a component of this, that players are not going there because, and they had a couple of guys drafted this year. So Peter Skoronski is a first round pick, but there are many players going to Northwestern that are there because it's Northwestern, not because they think they can win a Big Ten title or whatever else. So I think some guys will hang in there, but the hard part is that the players had just come out the day before that article really got resurfaced and wrote a letter saying the entire Northwestern football team feels this way about Pat Fitzgerald and backed him up and said he didn't know about it. And that really does not appear to be true from what I've read. And there's video evidence that goes against that claim. So I don't think some of those players were lying. I think some of the players didn't know that he knew.
Right. Have you taken a look at any college? Because you did such a good job with the NFL draft and the draft show and all that other stuff. Have you like, you know, we're breaking down college football at all. Have you taken any looks at any college football stuff?
I would say some. Yes, but this is my deep NFL getting ready for win totals and everything else season now, even doing some early fantasy football drafts, but I'll be doing college stuff as well as we get closer to the season. But I'm happy to throw out some general observations.
Well, I only asked because
my alma mater being terrible again. Sure.
No, we're not even going to mention Boston College. No, I mean,
look, I even got the shirt on today.
Look at you.
That looks great.
My dad's a BC alum too. So
that sounds like a great guy.
Unbelievable. No, I was going to say P-Rolt's all over Michigan to win the national title, win the Big Ten, and all that other stuff. I don't even want to get into
a lot of guys coming back. So look, they were in the mix last year. I don't see a reason why they would fall back. They're returning some really key players relative to the other teams in the Big Ten.
I just think there's question marks everywhere. I mean, I did a deep dive last night on Alabama's quarterback situation. It's ridiculous. I mean, they've got a kid who can't throw, who's a runner, not a quarterback. And then they have 3 players, 2 of which are a freshman. One's a kid that was there last year, but wasn't ready to play at all. And that's why the running quarterback played when Young got hurt. I mean, that's Alabama. Now they've got 5 and 4-star kids, but they have no experience. That's the story I feel like all over the country when it comes to quarterbacks, given the class that just left. There's big question marks right now as to who the best team in the country is. Is it not?
Yeah, of course. And you have at some of the major programs where we're coming back with new quarterbacks. Obviously, Ohio State has had a lot of success. They have tons of talent on offense, but it's going to be a new quarterback situation. I know our Penn State guy is going to be waving his Nittany Lion flag, but I don't know that we wouldn't say the top to bottom that their roster is more talented than the other 2 Big Ten teams we mentioned. They have to take their swings when they can get it. Clemson is Florida State. Is Florida State improved enough to knock Clemson off the pedestal in the Atlantic Division in the ACC? I don't know, but they're making strides. They're making more strides than I thought. I thought Mike Norvell was going to be a washout. Certainly the beginning of his tenure was not great, but he's improved to the point where I think people are liking Florida State moving up.
A lot of people think a playoff run is in the cards for Florida State. I'm serious. They believe they're the best team in the ACC. Look at the odds.
Please calm down. All right.
Well, I'm just telling you what the projections are.
People are talking about a lot of stuff. Do you know what else they're talking about in the chat right now, Mike?
Yeah.
Is that towel over your shoulder. They're pretty excited. There's a lot of people that watch the show from the Pittsburgh area that are Steeler fans. I know you've got the jacket. You're a Steeler guy.
I got some books over here. I got some Steelers books right here. If you see mine.
This is what I'm talking about. You're a Steeler guy, Mike. Tell the people how the Steelers are going to do and why they got a shot to win the AFC North, don't they, Mike? They have a shot to win the AFC North, don't they?
Well, what's interesting about the AFC North, and I would say the AFC North, NFC South are probably the two. One, because the teams are really not all that good. And one, because all the teams are pretty good, or you could see a world in which they have a very good season, Browns and Steelers. I think people feel good about the Ravens and Bengals more consistently. Right. But I think there's a lot of volatility in those two divisions in particular, where you could see, you could run a lot of simulations and see, I think there's a path here. If Deshaun Watson plays great, the Browns have a talented roster, maybe they come out on top on the division. I'm not saying that that's the most likely outcome. The Steelers, they clawed their way to this record last year, not looking pretty at all. And that really was without TJ Watt for a long stretch of time. Right. I just think that the defense going into last year, people dismissed the Steelers because I don't think they properly evaluated how impactful the defense is and how good that defense can be. Now, Cam Hayward's another year older. Can he still hang in there for an entire slate. TJ Watt is back. I think the Steelers have a shot to sniff around the playoffs, but as has been talked about all offseason, this AFC, the AFC on a whole this year is going to be highly competitive for those last few playoff spots. And no, I wouldn't bet on the Steelers to win the division. I don't think it's likely. But
would you bet on the Patriots to make the playoffs?
Probably not. I think the Bill O'Brien addition is a huge one.
Thank you.
I just have real concerns about, and Matt, I think we even talked about this last year. When you go on a spending spree and a free agency spending spree like the Patriots did a couple of years ago, it can help you for that 1 year bump. And then after that, there needs to be some real team building done behind it. And unfortunately, Bill has missed a lot during drafts, and guys that were drafted 3 years ago are no longer on the roster. So I think that is just hurting the team long term.
But the spend, in his defense, Matthew Judon was arguably the best player in football defensively.
Absolutely.
So he that was a for huge Judon.
Win. Yeah, that was a huge win. Some of the other ones haven't really worked out, but he's backfilled it with Devontae Parker and Juju Smith-Schuster, and I always think they'll be competitive. I don't think they're going to crater like some other teams are, like Arizona Cardinals are going to crater badly this year like the Bears did. It's not that kind of situation. I just think they're in a highly competitive division, and top to bottom, it's going to be tough for the Patriots. They're going to be winning some close games, but hopefully Mac working with Bill O'Brien is a chance for him to. His image got really banged up in the last year. I thought, frankly, some unfairly. I think he's a highly competitive guy. People seem to look at him as a brat in some ways, but if I were him, I would have been pretty ticked off too. Bill Belichick, for all of his brilliance, has in a couple of situations from a seasonal standpoint showed a lot of hubris and thrown his team under the bus. I thought last year was an example of it. That is not a plan to go into the season with that offensive coordinator situation. It's not an NFL situation to walk in there and be like, we'll kind of figure it out with the guy who holds a pencil behind his ear and thinks he's a rocket scientist, and the other guy who got fired in 2 years because he doesn't know how to be a regular coach. So I just thought that was a bad situation. All the way back in 2006, they sort of held back salary cap money to save when Tom desperately needed additional wide receivers, and they blew a 17-point lead in the AFC championship game to the Colts. I just thought and obviously the Malcolm Butler sitting out of the Super Bowl against the Eagles. I thought those are three situations that you really look back and you're like, what was the real explanation for that? The Malcolm Butler stuff might have some family ties to it, but
there's a lot of smoke in that fire.
Last one for me, Michael. What's the flavor to Slurpee today? 7-Eleven Slurpee.
I gave him they gave him a little combo. You know how you walk into a 7-Eleven, and shout out to 7-Eleven for the free Slurpees, but not every handle is working, not every flavor is possible. So you go in there, hey, one of these 6. No, it's actually just these 3. So everybody got a combination cherry and Coke one. So Not a bad combo. That's a good parlay.
That's a good combo. Mike, thanks for coming on, man. Really appreciate your time. We'll do it again soon, all right? Enjoy the summer.
Thank you, Michael.
Appreciate it. Thanks for letting me shoot my mouth off. Everybody, come to New York. Come to Boston. Don't drive.
Don't drive. No, don't drive. Absolutely not.